Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Sorry it's been a while since I've posted a video. I've been really busy, but I'm gonna go ahead and get back into things with another Seascape. So I'm gonna go ahead and start listing the colors here that I've used, and I'm gonna start blocking in the background of the sky with a little bit of cerulean blue, white, and just a touch of black. So I'm using a fan brush to do this with, but I ended up switching to a flat brush later on just because it was leaving some streaks and I didn't really like it. So the reason why I haven't posted is because like I said, I've been busy and my kids are doing remote learning, so that's kind of been a struggle. Plus it's been soccer season, so I haven't had a lot of time to edit videos or do really much painting. So I apologize, but I'll get back on track here soon. I hope everybody's doing well, and for those of you who are doing remote learning with your kids, I'm sure you guys can relate. It can get a little crazy sometimes. So I am going to go ahead and speed this background part up here. I'm just still laying it out with the cerulean blue, white, and a touch of black just to kind of gray it down a little bit. We're going to go over this part with some clouds so you don't have to worry about getting it perfect. I'm putting in my transition color because the bottom part of this is going to be more of like orange and peach tones. So to do that, I'm going to go ahead and have a very light transition color, almost like a light violet. So I'm picking up just a tiny bit of that red and just mixing it in with the blue, and I'm even adding just a tiny bit of portrait pink as I get down lower. And then this part is going to be where I'm going to start really incorporating the peach and orange tones. You've got the bottom part laid out and you still have that top part that's still somewhat wet. Just go ahead and blend those two together. So once you don't want to do orange because orange and blue make brown, so it might leave you with a kind of a gross color. So just have that transition with that light violet, and then now that we've got our pink down, we can go ahead and really start bringing out the orange tones. To blend that orange color into the purple because it actually makes a really pretty color. I love orange and purple. It just makes kind of like a mauve. So I'm taking a little bit of Payne's gray, a little bit of cerulean blue, and I'm taking a little bit of black because I want to gray this down a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and start working that in. I'm using a flat brush. I want to get a nice clean sharp line for that back water line. I'm just going to go ahead and start working this color in. You will see me as I get closer up. I'm going to be making larger waves as I come closer, and I'm just blocking those in. I'm going to go back through and kind of work on them a little bit, but I'm just trying to lay everything out just so I can kind of get a visual of how everything's going to look on the canvas. Okay, so I've got everything laid out for my water area, and I'm gonna go ahead and start just putting in the reflection from the sun, and this is gonna be in the wet sand part, just where the water is starting to, you know, drift off into the sand. So I've got Portrait Pink, the red light, and Naphthols red light. And I'm just going to go ahead and start blocking that in. Like I said, I will go back through and touch up this area throughout the painting, but just to get a basic idea of what I'm doing, I'm taking a little bit of the Quinacridone magenta and mixing that in now just to kind of give it more of a darker hue around the edges. Do like sand reflections and things like that, I really like to take my brush and drag it down like you see that I'm doing, and then sometimes I'll go across. It just creates kind of a cool illusion, and it makes it look like there's a really pretty reflection, and I don't know, it's just a cool effect. I learned it from watching Bob Ross. Okay, so I'm gonna put in the very dark sand part. So I've got Dioxazine purple and a little bit of yellow. And I'm just going to work that in. This is going to be like more of the drier sand. Okay, so I'm taking a little bit of blue too, just to kind of make it a little darker. So I'm going to just keep working that in. And then I'm going to mix up just a lighter version of this. So I'm adding in a little bit of white. And I'm just going to kind of blend it right along the edge of where the wet sand meets the dry sand. So where we put the reflection area in at, you'll see me blend that right into the dark sand area, because you want kind of like a light, glimmery, shiny color. So take a little bit of Quinacridone magenta, using some brown and some white, so I have like a pretty lavender color, or like more like a mauve. And I'm just gonna kind of go right over that reflection just a little bit. And I'm gonna drag it down into this dark sand area. So you want a light color, so add more white on your brush. And just start kind of blending that right in. I'm going to go ahead and push back this first little wave, which is the dark area that I have that's coming across the reflection that we put in. I'm going to push that back a little bit. So I'm just going to try to put some more peach and orange tones back in that area and cover it up. I didn't really leave myself enough room to have the water washing up. It would just be really really a small chunk and it just wouldn't look right. So I want to go ahead and just kind of go over this part and push it back just a little bit more. All right, so I've got a medium-sized round brush, and I'm just mixing up a very dark color to put in as my shadow for underneath my water line that I have. It's going to be washing up onto shore. I'm just trying to kind of map out where I want it to come up at. And then I will take my light color and put that over this. But you always want to have like a nice shadow color right underneath the whitewash. So don't go too bright on this. I'm doing more bluer tones, so I'm taking a little bit of the Ultramarine blue, Cerulean blue, and white. And just keep working that in until you get a nice light shade of blue. And I'm going to actually switch to a small filbert. That round brush was way too big, so I just switched to a smaller filbert brush. You can use whatever you have that's small, whatever, that'll just give you a nice water line. So just kind of work that in right over the dark area. We can reincorporate shadows, so don't worry if you lose it. I am working wet on wet. For some reason, the area that I work in it's pretty like cool down there, and it's really like a moist room. So like there's a lot of moisture in there, and I just feel like my paints take forever to dry, which is a good thing for some people, but for me, I just feel like I have to wait for stuff to dry. So sometimes I work wet on wet. And I'm just going to come through here. This is like the left side of the whitewash. You can be kind of random with this. It's all kind of however you just want to lay it out. So I'm mixing up some ultramarine blue right into that Payne's gray. I'm going to go ahead and map out where I want this first little rolling wave to be. You got to be careful with Payne's gray. It's a really pretty color. I'm using the Liquitex Basics, and it's somewhat translucent. It's not an opaque color. So if you are using Payne's gray, it seems to not go on very opaque, which can be a good thing sometimes. But you know, if you want it to be more opaque, you're gonna have to mix it with like a white or something that's opaque. So I'm just going through and kind of mapping out where I want this rolling wave to be. Once this dries, I'll go through and detail it out more, but I am gonna take a little bit of that light blue color we had for the whitewash, and I'm just gonna kind of blot on where I want some of the foamy whitewash to be from the rolling wave rolling over. So now I'm going to go ahead and start putting in little highlights over the water. I'm going to go in a diagonal direction, and I'm going to be kind of using this pattern pretty much for the entire water portion, except I'm going to get straighter, like I'm going to have more horizontal lines as I get farther out in the deeper part of the ocean. That's going to give your painting more depth. So just go in the shape of those waves, those ripples that you put in. And anytime that you're doing this, just the key that you want to use is putting highlights over the dark areas. So anytime you put like a dark wave in, make sure you're putting a highlight over that. Now I'm going back through, obviously you can see I'm putting in some more shadow areas. So just switching back from lights to darks, you just really want that in your painting. It's going to give it a lot of depth and it's going to make it look more realistic. So I'm just basically putting in like little triangular shapes, as you can see, almost like if you're making a little bird in the sky. That's kind of like the shape that you want to kind of go after. Just like a little triangle. And then I take my brush and I kind of drag it down a little bit. And then I will go back through and even put some more highlights in these areas just to detail it out even more. So it's just a back and forth process. And like I said, make sure you're getting smaller peaks, like putting in smaller shadows and waves as you get further out. That's also going to help with the depth of your painting. And doing the more horizontal shapes as you get further out. So I'm going to go ahead and jump to the very back because I want to see my smallest waves in the back before I finish the mid part, the midsection, just to get like an even transition from tiny waves to bigger waves. So I'm taking a little palette knife. You can use a tiny brush. It's going to give you bigger, it might give you bigger shapes more so than what you're looking and trying to get. But this just works really nice for me. I really like how it gives you kind of more like random areas. So I just take it and I'm just gonna blot it on in the back area just to make it look like there's tiny itty bitty waves back there. And you can go as heavy as you want. You can do a lot, you can do little, it's all up to you. But this is what I like to do. And then I will go through and do the same method of putting in some highlighted areas. And you can use a tiny brush or you can use the palette knife, whatever you feel more comfortable with. But I'm just gonna go ahead and kind of use this method for now. And the area that I just did is kind of messy, but like I said, I'm gonna go back through and touch it up when I put my highlighted areas in. But it's sometimes hard to get like the perfect combination of paint on your palette knife and use it. It takes a little bit of practice. You have to kind of just work with it. So sometimes blotting, sometimes dragging your knife over like I'm doing now will give you a nice effect. It's just all a personal preference. But I do like to use the palette knife for like little distant waves back there. You can use a fan brush too. If you have a nice fan brush that's got some spaces in between, you can just blot that on and use that too. I have a feathered rake brush, and like I said, for anybody that's watched my previous videos, you know that that's one of my favorite brushes to use, and it just gives you individual dots. It's good for grass, it's good for lots of little details and things like that. But anyway, this is just the method I'm going to use right now. Like I said, I'm getting kind of messy with it right now, but I'll go back through and clean it all up. It's just, like I said, it gets kind of messy sometimes when you use a palette knife because if you get too much paint on it, it can be a mess. So I'm going to go clean that up. Just taking a flat brush and going in between with some lighter colors, and I'm just going to clean up the areas that I don't like, and I'm just blotting in and sometimes dragging across as I get more towards the midsection to give you bigger shapes. But in the back there, I'm kind of trying more so to just kind of like blot it on. So for the highlighted areas over the midsection, like down where the sun is going to be, I'm going to make more of a like purple lavender tone. So I'm just kind of dipping my brush in a little bit of some of that portrait pink and a little bit of that blue mixture that we had for the whitewash, just to kind of give you like a really pale pink color. And then I'll go back through with some orange tones for like a little bit of a sun reflection up here as well. So I'm taking a little bit of the Quinacridone magenta, some of the Ultramarine blue, and portrait pink. And I'm going to go ahead and start blocking in some clouds, adding a little bit of white to that just to lighten it a little bit. I'm using a filbert brush. I love using a filbert brush for putting in clouds. So I'm just going to go ahead and start incorporating all these cloud areas, and then we will put in our sun. I'm just basically scumbling. You can still see the layers below because I'm using very dry paint. My brush isn't very wet. I'm going to brighten this area up because this cloud is kind of sunlit, so I want a nice, like more of a pink tone where this cloud is. I'm going to go ahead and take a little bit of cad yellow and portrait pink, just a touch of portrait pink. And I'm going to go ahead and put the sun in, almost just like a half circle right in this area. And then what you can do to really make it shine and glow is take a little bit of that mixture that we had for the sun and kind of just outline these clouds. And then I take my finger and kind of just blend it a little bit. And I'm even going to take some and go over this top area and into the sky, just random shapes. Try to be really imperfect when you're doing your clouds. A lot of times people try too hard to make them look uniform and it just doesn't look realistic. So if you're going for a realistic sky, you really have to force yourself to like just do random shapes and really try to go out of your comfort zone, because I know it can kind of bug you to not, you know, to not do them perfectly. But if you are going for a more realistic sky, being imperfect is your best way to go. So I'm gonna go ahead and let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and put in some clouds, but I'm gonna darken them up since it's kind of going up into this blue area away from the lightest point of the sky. So I'm gonna use kind of like the same mixture we did earlier with the ultramarine blue and the sorry, I can't think, guys, and the magenta, and use more blue than you are magenta. You want it more on the bluer side, or like a blue purple, because like I said, it is getting further away from the brightest part of the sun. And like I said, just go ahead and do random little clouds here and there, and I'm just still using my filbert brush and just working those in. I've got my clouds finished. I'm gonna go ahead and start on the foreground, and I'm gonna really start to bring out this reflection. So I'm going over it with a very light lavender color, and I'm kind of pulling down, and I'm gonna be going across, and then I'll work on the whitewash. So now I'm going to go ahead and take some of that portrait pink and the white and bring out the sun a little bit more, make it a little brighter. And I'm going to take that same color and put it down right in this reflection area. Now I'm taking a little bit of a darker blue, and I'm going through and just squiggling my brush back and forth. Save your lightest color for the last, because the more you build up these layers, the more 3D your painting is going to look. So I'm just going to go ahead and go through, start off with the darker blue, and work your way up to the lighter hues. Really try to hold back your brightest lights because you really want to save those for the very end and work your way up from darkest to lightest. So basically I'm going to go through and just start darkening things up and lightening things up, and I'm running my small liner brush right underneath this foam and bringing out this shadow area. So I'm just going to go ahead and detail this rolling wave out just a little bit. just trying to shape it out, and the areas that it's rolling over, I'm just going to bring that out a little more now that it's all dry. I'm going to take a fan brush and I'm going to take a very light blue and just blot it on where the wet sand meets the dry sand, just to make it kind of look like it's shimmering. This is pretty much the last step of the painting, is just finishing these final touches. So I hope that you guys like this one. I will be putting out another video very soon. I'll be getting on my week-to-week basis of putting out a video. I've just been really busy lately, like I said, but I hope that you guys really enjoyed this one, and if you have any comments or anything like that, or maybe some suggestions of things that you might want to see painted, make sure you drop them in the comment section below, and I will go ahead and follow up with you guys in my next video. So thank you again so much for watching. If you guys haven't subscribed and you like this video, make sure to do so, and also don't forget to hit the notification bell for my upcoming videos.